Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Argos Anonymous. Oh my gosh, the last week was so rough. I just had like the worst respiratory infection I've had in a long time. My whole family got it. We got nuked. Even we have like one kid never gets sick. She's immune. Every time everyone else gets blasted, she just keeps going on with her life. Even she got annihilated by this thing, and I finally feel like I can talk without dying. So here we are, making a MetaZoo video about the latest market shenanigans happening on eBay. We're going to look at what's been selling, what hasn't been selling. You know, so much of the focus has been on prices that have been going down in MetaZoo, but the truth is there's entire classes of items in MetaZoo, the blue chips, if you will, that have actually been holding up pretty darn well. Take a look at this. So this is what I did was I filtered. This is on Terapeak, which is like a product research category on eBay. What it does is it typically filters out items that were relisted, things that weren't paid for. It shows the final actual sold price. Like Terapeak is just way better than just searching for sold items on eBay, right? So that's what we're going to look at. And I want to point out, it's interesting to see how well a lot of the blue chip cards have been holding up. Here we have like, for example, this sample PSA 10 Kushtaka. A lot of the sample PSA 10 stuff has been holding up pretty darn well. This person was asking for $2,500 and ended up getting $1,727. It's a PSA 10 sample, but it's just a random card. You know, Kushtaka is great if you play Frost. Like if you're maybe this was bought by a MetaZoo player who, you know, just really like connects to that Frost Kushtaka and wanted like the most legit version of it. That's possible. But if you're not a player, this isn't like a Babe the Blue Ox. It's not a Pizza Bird. It's not a Ding Bell. It's not a Mothman. It's not one of those, right? It's not really like a highly resonant cryptid. So it's just interesting to see that it's sold for such a high value. Here is a sample Grim Reaper. This is a Collecticon stamped 1 of 1 card. It's sold for $1,776 on auction. The Collecticon stamp cards are interesting because there are very few that are PSA 10 because they kind of got a little bit beat up, right? A lot of them have, they're not terrible, but a lot of them have like a couple little scratches, maybe some dings, and the stamp itself actually causes damage to the back of the card. I'll show you right there. There's like, you can see lines here from the back of that stamp, and then there's some imprints as well. So a lot of these earn PSD 6, 7, or 8. There's some 9s, and I think there's 110 that probably just the PSA intern that was looking at it was asleep that day, and somehow it earned a 10. Anyway, but it's nice to see, you know, people are still bidding these up. These are technically all 1 of 1 cards as far as we know. So those are still catching some pretty good value. Cumberland Dragon sold January 7th. That was actually really recently for a lot of money. Was this this was an auction, and it was raw. An ungraded raw, but it was the Collecticon stamp, so technically 1 of 1. Cumberland Dragon sold for $2,176. Cumberland Dragon has like a pretty good fan base, I would say. You know, it's a dragon. People love dragons. People have always been kind of like attached to this Victor Larson artwork, this whimsical origin of MetaZoo Cumberland Dragon. But yeah, that was just, what was that? 10, 20, within, I don't even know what day it is. It was recently. It was January 7th. Kickstarter boxes, in addition to sample cards, have been holding pretty good value. Kickstarter boxes were about $1,500 last summer, and they are still about $1,500. So if you look through here, we've got this one went, now this is a, was this a, yeah, non-alternating Kickstarter box. He was asking $1,800, and it did sell for $1,800. You can see as we go down this list, here's another Kickstarter box for $1,500. Here's one for $1,850. Here's one for $1,500. These were auctions, by the way. The $1,500 January 7th was an auction, and then January 6th, I think this one was mine, non-alternating auction. This went to an international buyer who recently received it, left positive feedback. It was good. There have been some good sales. Here's another one of mine, actually. This was a gold NFT coin Mothman. This one sold for, what was I asking? I was asking $2,000 because it's a friggin' gorgeous, awesome card, and it ended up selling for $1,650. Beautiful card, very low pop. Again, though, we're talking about essentially the rare stuff, the staple cards, Kickstarter cards, sample cards, rare promos, things with Mothman, things with dragons, stuff like that. Here's a Quetzalcoatlus Superfractor that sold December 23 for $1,750 on auction once again. So we're seeing, you know, even though there certainly has been a drift down of a lot of MetaZoo stuff that has gone down in value, the really high pop stuff where there's like 22,000 copies, like a lot of the first edition stuff. The promos and the rare stuff and the PSA 10 staples, samples, and Kickstarter, they've been holding a pretty good value. Here are PSA 10 Kickstarter cards. Again, these are obviously not nearly the same value as sample because they're, they're higher pop and everything, but they've been holding pretty well too. Here's a Ghost Train PSA 10 that went for $250. We have a PSA 10 Phoenix Train. Now, some of them are drifting down. I've noticed there's been like a divergence, right? Some of the lesser known or lesser chased PSA 10 Kickstarter cards, like this Phoenix Rain PSA 10, went for $50, right? Of course, that was a fixed price, not an auction. But you'll see that in auctions too, right? But the Sam Sinclair's Growth, Ghost Train, Loveland Frogman, the big, obviously, Mothman is still selling pretty well. Those big name brand, those big highly resonant cards, here's a Growth for $250 that's sold, are still commanding great value. Here's a signed Kickstarter Chaos Crystal signed by Poncho that went on auction for $485 PSA 10. So there's still a big bid under PSA 10 Kickstarter, sample cards, rare promos, and what it kind of looks like to me is essentially MetaZoo everything was stonking. Everything was high for quite a while, and now there's really been a divergence where a lot of the, I don't want to say like low end, but that's what it is. Even if we love some of the stuff that's like higher pop, it's eventually like lower end chase. A lot of that stuff has crashed because there's just too much of it, right? But the rare stuff has actually held up quite good value, and the PSA 10 like staple slabs and Kickstarter and rare promos, stuff like that. So interesting to see. What do you guys think of that? I would love to know what your experience of the marketplace has been in the last few weeks. I feel like there's actually been a bounce up in January. If we look at MetaZoo market sales, it seems like the market is stronger now in January than it was in December, which is kind of interesting. I was able to raise quite a bit of money for the my wife and I have a store remodel, or it's not a remodel for us. It's like an initial actually modeling of the interior, but it's a remodel from a building that we have acquired. And so we have a lot of funds were raised recently from MetaZoo, so we can help pay for that. We have a little bit more fundraising to do, but it was interesting. My experience from my auctions was that a lot of things went for more than not a ton more than I expected, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. Like I was, wondering how the market was. It's Christmas. It's the dead of winter. MetaZoo just transitioned from not shutting down, but locking up its Discord, right? And it's like moving into whatever its next phase is. And I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and it went really, really well. So there's a lot of bids under these like staple items, and yeah. Anyway, look at this. Here's a Red Ink PSA 9 went for $2,150, which is pretty consistent. We saw Red Inks raw have been selling for about $2,000 for quite a long time, and PSA 10s have been going for like $3,500 to $4,000. This person looks like they were asking $3,500 and it ended up selling here on Terra Peak. We can see it went for $2,150. December 21st. So pretty consistent with a raw price. I think we're still seeing MetaZoo PSA 9s are selling for essentially the same as the raw price. So anyway, just wanted to bring you this little bit of a market update on Sunday now that I'm alive again. I hope you're all doing well. Don't worry, I am not dead, although I have been spending a little bit of time playing Paw World, which the whole world is playing right now, and so I am with them. We opened up a server for Oasis, by the way. Hop into Oasis and ask me for the server code if you want to jump in and play some Paw World together. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thank you, MetaFan, for stopping by. As always, I do appreciate this opportunity to entertain you fine peoples of MetaZoo. Until next time, this is Argos, signing out.